Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John. This is episode 279. Like I always say, each and every week I sit down and I answer your questions. And if you have questions, please send them to the podcast at this address, podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. I try my best to answer each and every question. Sometimes I'll just email the person back and answer a very personal question. But today we have a real mix of questions, so let's get started. So our first question comes from James, and he started work as a mailman. He's been struggling with adjusting his workout to the fact that now he has a very physically demanding job. And now I quote, "I walk an average of 20,000 steps a day, lifting and carrying mail and packages. Sometimes I just don't have the energy to go to the gym at the end of the day, especially if I have to work late and my step count creeps up to 25 to 30,000 steps a day." One of the things about this step count thing, just as a note, folks, is that just like 8 glasses of water a day, the 10,000 step a day isn't science. It's just a good guideline. And by the way, good guidelines have value. So maybe there is no research that says 8 glasses of water a day is better or worse, but it's not a bad idea. It's fine. I certainly drink that much every day, and I've probably been doing it, since I was a child. On the 10,000 step rule, I know that when I travel and I walk more, I tend to keep my body weight down by walking longer every day. So just remember, just sometimes something isn't backed up by pure science doesn't mean it's wrong. It's a good guideline. Okay. I've reduced my workouts to 3 full body workouts per week, generally in the 8 to 12 rep range for about 12 sets per workout. And I'm guessing 12 sets of everything. And I try to bias my exercise selection towards stuff that doesn't cause a lot of fatigue. I start my workouts with a push movement one day, pull movement one day, and leg movement one day. So I hit everything when I'm fresh once a week. I love this. I have a program online somewhere where I argue the same thing. I also deload more frequently now. I do a deload week after every 4 weeks of training, but some days I just don't have the energy to get into the gym. I have been pretty good about hitting my 3 sessions per week, but I just have to forgive myself sometimes if I can only make it to the gym twice. Sure. I'm curious if there's any advice you want to give someone like me with a physical job on how to reduce fatigue and have energy for life while still getting the workouts in. Well, there's 2 ways I would go about it. First, I think what you're doing right now is just fine. 3 full body workouts where you have, and I would even take a step down. If you don't mind, this is suggestion number 1, is that you still you start a workout with the push, the second workout with the pull, and the third workout with legs, and I hope that means squats. On the push day, make that the push day. Maybe add, if you're doing 12 total sets, maybe 6 to 8 of the sets are push exercises, and then do two sets of pull and do 2 sets of squat or whatever it is. On the pull day, 6 to 8 to 10 sets of pulling exercises, a push, and a squat. On the squat day, which I would recommend keeping it away from the walking days, lots of leg exercises, and then less push and pull. Just something that simple where you're giving yourself a push day, a pull day, and a squat day, but still touching the other elements each workout might be an idea. Another idea, it's going to depend on your schedule and how you are physically, but for me, it would work well that maybe Wednesdays, I'm just guessing you work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't know your schedule. But on Wednesdays, I would do the workout that I'm strongest at, which is push. So Wednesdays, I would do a hard focus push workout. Make sure I get some movements in the other worlds. And then on Saturday, focus on the pull, and let's flip that so you have an extra day to recover. Saturday would be the leg workout. Sunday would be the pull workout. Now, when you're trying to balance hard work with training, it's always hard. In my world, these are the same questions I get, like in-season training. And sometimes in-season training, I mean, I always use the example of that baseball team I work with, where they have 6 workouts planned in a 2-week period. A, B, A, B, A, B. Okay, there you go. That's what they're going to do. But it might take 6 weeks to do those 6 workouts because of injuries, travel, games, schedules, 1,000 other reasons. Just general fatigue from games, flights, bad hotels, the whole thing. So when you're trying to figure out a program with a lot of steps, like you're doing, think a little bit more of hard focus on one thing a workout and touch on the other things and repeat that. I know that this kind of thing works. The one nice thing is you don't have to walk after your workouts. That's kind of nice. There's a time saver. You don't mention anything about nutrition here, and I really didn't get a sense of sleep or how your social life is. But I think with the amount of walking you're doing, having focused days with that little bit of extra is going to be the way to go. If you can pull off a Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday program, that can work too. And that'll give you 4 days of lots of walking, 1 day of walking plus lifting, and 2 just lifting days. Now, someone's going to raise their hand. And what about rest days or off days? One thing you've already talked about and I like is your deload cycle. You're saying every 4th week. I might want you to go back to something that was popular. It had been the late 70s, early 80s, called load leaping. And that means that every 3rd week you deload. We're not going to worry about the specifics of week 1 and week 2, but every 3rd week you back way off. You still do the movements, but there's a big drop back in the load and reps and sets. That might be a real simple thing to do, to the point that I was even thinking out loud, every 3rd week you don't lift at all, and just see if a non-lifting week helps you with the fatigue. Physical jobs are tough. I mean, but if you keep trying to work with your body and think things through, I think we can get through this. It's a really interesting question, James. I'm close to my mailman, and I also have someone who trains with us a lot who's a male person. And I got to tell you, the route that my mailman has isn't very hard, but what my friend who's a mailman, a new one, he gets the tough ones. There are some routes here in the Salt Lake Valley that are basically all uphill, and it's possible you can get one of those. And I don't know how you'd work around that. If your route is all uphill, both ways as a joke used to go, I don't know if you need any leg workouts. So thanks for sharing that. And let me know how it goes. I'd be interested. We have a question from Chris, and it's a question I actually had to prepare myself for, okay? He says this: could you please say something about how you keep your logbooks? Obviously, it needs to record the workout, but beyond that, I'm unsure. I'm torn between writing down lots of information like sleep quality, food, time of day, warm-up, mobility work, body measurements, and keeping it fairly short so I can find information that matters in the future. The first thing I want to say is I have an online, I do both. I have a journal. This is an older one. I keep a journal, and then I also keep a log over at Dan John University, and I'm very candid and very honest about what I do. I mean, it's not always great, but let me just show you some examples from my past. This is my first journal, and as I often joke, it's funny because I have here weightlifting, and then I wrote it as diary versus, check that. Weightlifting dairy is how I wrote it. Dairy versus diary, which was kind of funny. And here are my first workouts, and I used to always put pictures of weightlifters and in there, and I still, by the way, I still kind of do that. I have workouts that I had ideas for. Sometimes back in May 1st, 1972 and May 8th, I would just write down the workouts exactly as I did them. Later in this particular journal, this is from 1974, I will have a few things where I talk about in depth some stuff. Like here in, this one here in 1974, is this my junior year? Yeah, this is my junior year in high school. This is back when I was starting to believe the bodybuilding nonsense as a thrower. I had chest, legs, back, and arms. Then later I threw a lot farther when I stopped thinking like a bodybuilder and started thinking like an athlete. And I didn't mean to be rude by that. There's different goals for different things. One of my best ones is from 2002. And this is when I would cut and paste things that I learned a lot from. This is Tom Fahey, some material from Bill Witt. One of the things I think is really important is every year is when I start a diary, Chris, I begin with stuff I know. Interesting because I still believe this right here. There's a funny line right there on the top. It says, the courage to be patient. I love that. It's funny, I write in 2002 that if I focus on berries and vegetables and protein, I do fine. That's unchanged. Interesting. This is when I'm experimenting with creatine for the first time. It was a disaster, but now I made it work. 22 years later, I figured out how to make it work. I take creatine gummies. For whatever reason, drinking creatine never agreed with me. Fish oil, my lifting, I have 3 things. Overhead, off the floor, and carries. That's funny. A few other things in here. And in this particular journal, oh gosh, took a walk with Lindsay. God, she was only 10 years old. These I kind of have this one it has a lot more discussions of things, and then the workouts themselves are a little bit shorter. That's interesting. It's funny, I still use some of the same loads in training 22 years later. Phoenix surgery, Christmas. I don't know, I'd have to reread some of the stuff, these little notes I make. Sled work in the backyard, tire drills, all kinds of things. Now, as I move into my more recent time, I'll just show you what I do now. These come from Parker. The number one thing I do is I put my pirate map on the back, and this is the same one. Number 1, before I go to bed, make coffee for the morning, take hibernate, make my to-do list. 2, 10 minutes of original strength work, ideally in the sauna. That works for me. 3, eat veggies at every meal. I used to say eat 8 veggies a day, but now I eat so many, that's an easy thing. 4, 5 days a week, I lift weights as appropriate and walk, ruck, or heavy hands. And number 5, make a difference. What I do now, this is the weightlifting meet. Okay. Anytime you see a little cardboard thing like that, that's a cheat sheet for Olympic lifting meet. This is the week, I broke the American record that week. It's not official because it wasn't a drug tested meet, masters weightlifting. But what I do now is I always put my 2 major goals. One's body weight and the other one is my income levels. This is an older example where I'm not using a bumper at this time. This is just not that long ago. And then this is an older one. And these are my favorite ones. And it was interesting when I picked this up to show you today, I was amazed at how much good stuff I had in here. So I'm going to be popping all this. I'm going to reread this as soon as I get done here. Gosh, there's just a lot of little notes. So for me, there's a couple of tools I use to help me. Okay, let's go through what I do every time, Chris. Every journal I ever start always has a things I know list as I start, okay? It's just very important. These are, I'll go through the old journal and write out, okay, these are things that are working and continue to work. Sometimes I'll talk about certain authors I trust. I do like the idea of including the daily workouts, but I'm not nearly as specific as I used to be. Oh, I still include everything, but when I was with Dick Notmeyer at the Pacific Barbell Club, if I did warm-ups with the bar, I wrote 45 times 3. If I added 10, 65. So I'd have these massive lists of, times 3, times 3, times 3. Now I'm a lot, I don't do that as much. If I need more warm-ups, I'll just write in my notes, need more warm-ups. But the other thing I want you to remember is I also include my daily to-do lists in my journal. So I write my to-do lists in my journal the night before, and then I check them off as I go through. And then if anything fun comes up, I'll make a little note on it. So let me explain this. So to summarize everything, my journals are past, present, future, practically every day. So the big thing about that things I know are true thing at the start of every journal, that reminds me of, I've picked up a few lessons in the last few months. Stay focused on this. Don't get too cute. And then the night before, I write out my to-do list. I'm predicting the next day. If it's a Tuesday, I'm predicting what I'm going to do on a Wednesday. And then as I go through my to-do list the next day, as I check off items and add new things, it's just a nice one-stop shop for my, instead of having this massive thick day planner like we had, 20, 30 years ago. It's just like the way I used to do it. Best day planners I ever used were just little index card that I would keep in my pocket right here. Back when I used to wear shirts with pockets. I don't wear shirts with pockets anymore. I don't need to hold my pens or anything. But, and I'd have these little index cards and I'd write down all the things I need to do. And now I'd probably put it in my back pocket and just look at it as I go through the day. One thing I think that's important about journals, and it's going to sound crazy, keep them, review them, go back through time. I was just looking at this one and I realized that I did a very interesting thing on this one. So it had been a year and a half ago I did this. And it's funny as I look at it, because I'm inventing the perfect workout as I do this, which just makes me laugh. I include how much it's going to cost me to survive at this time, because I was trying to figure out the minimum I needed to survive financially. Just a fun little thing that's in the middle of one of my journals. And yet I just looked at it today and went, oh yeah, let's redo that. A couple of things I think you should have in a journal. I do think you should put your best worst list for every year in your journal. I type mine up and then I just tape it back in. I think it's important that you do something like, I do that 5-2 assignment with the inner circle, where you look 2 decades in the future, 2 years in the future, 2 months in the future, today and tomorrow. It's nice to have stuff like that. I like to think a lot about where I'm going to be in 2 decades. As I'm speaking today, I'm 67. In 2 decades, I'd like to be here. I'll be 87. I'd still like to be doing this podcast, and I'd like to be still whipping weights over my head. And to do that in 2 decades, I can't be too stupid today or tomorrow or 2 months from now or 2 years from now. I hope that had some value. One thing, if you do decide to use something over there at Dan John University, like the workout generator, where it keeps the workouts, there's some real value to that. I like to do both. I like to have a digital online one, because then I get feedback from the members of the DJU about things. And then I also like to have this personal one where sometimes I can have more personal things in it. Interesting, because, I believe I'm about as candid as anybody when it comes to my personal life. I don't know if I have any secrets I haven't shared with any of you, but if there's something, maybe I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but maybe I'll put that in my journal. I think every minute you spend on a journal is money well spent. You can see that I have color coding in here. That's one thing I like about from these Parker seminars that I work for, that I get these journals from them, and then I use these little pieces of colored strips. Some of the journals, orange means over. That's a day I don't weigh in well. Green means go. Those are days where I'm under the body weight I want. You can just do stuff like that. And what's nice is that you can look at a journal just like this and say, okay, I'm trending in a back direction with my overs. Well, the greens tend to be more here, but okay. I'm rambling now, but Chris, I hope that helped in some way, okay? Your question about, should it just be hard numbers? I don't think that works. Should it just be, I hate the new kid in class, and my teacher's mean. No, it should be a blend of as whatever information you think's helpful. If you notice you're not writing in your journal, your diary, think about it a little bit and try to figure out the reasons you're not, okay? Generally for me, it's a sign that things are going south. Hope that helped. Thanks. So James asked a question. If you were in a strange world where your only workout options were domestic tasks such as house and garden work, what tasks do you think would best cover the important elements, push, pull, hinge, squat, carries, and how would you program throughout the week in order to get the best exercise and complete the task successfully? That is, have a clean and tidy house and garden. Well, the answer is gardening. Gardening is a really underrated way of training. If any of you ever gardened, and I have, not well, I'm real good at hosting beehives. My 4 beehives were the most productive 4 beehives in my beehive guy, atheist. In his whole set of beehives. I'm really good at, taking care of beehives. My tomato crop this year was good. My mint crop was good. And none of the squash and none of the beans and none of the corn did anything. My sunflowers were world records though. So, but if you do serious gardening, you'll get your squats in, trust me, you'll get your hinges in. I don't know how much pulling, but I guess if you're pulling weeds and you're pulling sunflower seed stalks at the end of the year, they're huge. They're huge sunflower seed stalks. But to me, it'd just be household gardening. I mow my own lawn again. I stopped doing it for a couple of years because my travel schedule. It was just a thing. But I started mowing my own lawn, and I got to tell you one thing, folks. If you put on a rucking jacket and mow your lawn, I got to tell you, the number of steps you get in mowing the lawn is a surprising number. Now, I guess I could also put on I have this, ringside neck helmet hat. It's just basically it's an oversized ankle weight, I guess I could wear that and I could wear my rucking vest. My neighbors think I'm a lunatic anyway, so, what's new? But mowing the lawn with a ruck vest is really a good way to get a cheap little workout in, and then go over. I'd be very careful about wearing a weighted vest while doing gardening. I think I've mentioned the story a few times here on the podcast about a couple years back. I had read this thing that the best exercise you could get, and it's very true here in America because we have a lot of litter bugs, is you go for a walk and you grab a bag and glove and you pick up the litter as you walk around. Well, went over to Wheeler Farm in the back area, and I was wearing a vest, and a weight vest. I could barely move the next day because the number of hinges and twists that I did. But by God, it's a great workout, folks. So if you want to make the world a better place today, don't do it the first day. Go out with a with a garbage bag and gloves, and just go pick up litter. And I got to tell you, it is an outstanding way to train walk, picking up litter is just really good. And don't use a little cheater stick. Bend down and pick it up. And also, too, you will come home disgusted by your fellow humans. I don't know if that helped. That was a fun question. And thanks for asking it. You made me laugh, so that was good. Kirk asked a question that really doesn't really fit the way I do things, but I'll answer it. You speak a lot about the vectors of increasing the difficulty of workouts, such as volume, load, shorter rest times, etc. Well, yeah, the vectors, but those are the standard things. Volume is reps and sets. Load is simply how much is on the machine, the kettlebell, the dumbbell, the barbell. And density training, he called it shorter rest periods, but it's a little bit more than that. Track and field and swimming are the ultimate density sports, which is why I always reference them so much, because you can talk all you want as a coach, all you want. I know there's so many experts online. If you can make a track and field athlete jump higher, run faster, throw farther, I want to hear what you're doing. But if you're taking a bunch of, I don't even know what sport to offend today, women's lacrosse players, and you make them faster in their 20-meter sprint, well, good for you. But if they're track and field faster, that's what I want to know. Okay. I've read a few of Pavel's books that adding power or high-speed eccentrics with kettlebells can also amplify results when your current weight begins to feel lighter. This appears to apply mostly to the family of ballistic kettlebell exercises. What are your opinions of high-speed eccentrics, and do they have tangible benefits? It's interesting because, I teach you these kettlebell certs, and I already got corrected by the company I work for I often will bring bands in to kettlebell training. It's really hard to explain, and the moment I try to say how to do it, it throws me off, but I like to use Dynamax bands with kettlebells, or if you're too cheap, there's this exercise that I love. It's where you're doing kettlebell swings, and as that bell is coming up to the high point, I grab it with my hand and I throw it as hard as I physically can back at you. And it's amazing because it really teaches how a kettlebell swing should be. A kettlebell swing, and I watch people do these on YouTube, over in Reddit. They have a nice little area. It's either in Kettlebell or Kettlebells, where it's called, check my swing form. And the most common thing I see is that people just kind of, it's just, the bell just kind of, I don't know, it looks like the bell is on a string, and it just kind of goes like a pendulum. It doesn't really do. But what you want to do is you want to throw that bell as hard as you can forward and then throw it right back at you as hard as you can back. So this Dynamax drill with the bands will teach that without someone having to slap the bell. But doing that, it's generally called in the certs the spike swing. I think it has great value. If I was working with an elite athlete and we needed the kettlebell swing, I would imagine every set, every rep, real quick here, let the person do 1, 2, 3 swings before you step up and start attacking them, just to get that they get the rhythm going, okay? In fact, 4 or 5 if you have to. But every set would be spiked swings. I think there's great value to them. My knock about people trying to do it, I'm trying to throw the bell back harder, and I think it's doable, but they have to feel the intensity first to understand what's happening. Only because I've worked with people, and when they do it by themselves, they start to shrug up their shoulders in the swing, and they shrug the shoulders, bend their arms, and then it's almost like they're adding all kinds of things. Whereas if I'm there spiking it, your brain literally doesn't have time to respond to all that extra load. So yes, I'm a fan of it. It just has to be done well. And by God, if that's not just a summary of kettlebell work, Olympic lifting, it's got to be done well. And you don't always see things done well. And I think that lends us to some other issues. But good question. And I know I'm a little vague about what I'm asking you on that swing with the stretchy band, the Dynamax band. But once you see it, if I explain it, I'm going to screw it up. But when I set it up correctly with you in my gym, it is eye-opening. But, that's maybe for another time. Thank you. Good question. So Mark's question is always a tough one. It starts off with, it's 1, 2, 3. It's the fourth word that gets us. I'm a 62-year-old. Okay, and it's going to be a question about building muscle. And I got to tell you, folks, there are certain periods of time you really want to build muscle. And I got to tell you, if you coach high school and collegiate athletes, it's like stealing because nature is working with you. But for the rest of us, I'd say we need to have a conversation with nature. I'm a 62-year-old, formerly competitive bike racer who now rides 8 to 10 a week in the summer, 5 to 7 during the off season. I don't know what 8 to 10 means, but 8 miles, 8 sessions in the summer. Every year, I strength train in the off season, usually starting with easy strength, then moving on to something else. That's not bad. I'm an ectomorph, 5'10", 150, and a hard gainer. This year, I'd like to add some muscle in the off season. This summer, I did ABC, humane burpee, and easy strength 3 times a week, going fairly light on all 3. So, folks, for those of you who are listening and following, so he's doing the humane burpee, which is great. It's a great little fat burning workout, but I'm not sure it's a muscle building workout. What would be a good program to pack on some muscle? I was thinking about doing the armor building formula for 8 weeks, followed by mass made simple. Too much? Or will I gain enough during the armor building formula and from there move on maybe into easy strength? Well, as a bicyclist, you have to ask yourself about mass made simple. So it's high rep back squats. Will that help a competitive bike racer? Now, I'm not sure if you're a BMXer, if you're a road biker or a track biker. I don't know, and I'm already out of my depths here. But to me, adding either the armor building formula or mass made simple for a competitive bike racer makes sense. Now, there's a site online I have great respect for, bikejames.com, and be sure if you drop by, say hi to James. He's a great coach, and he recommends some other things, some kettlebell work, some isometric work for bike racing, and I agree with all of it because I trust bikejames.com. If you were to do the armor building formula and you followed it correctly with the high rep pressing and all those high rep squats that you do on the armor building complex, yeah, I think you would build some mass, and that the reports I'm getting back from most people is, yeah, it's a great mass builder. If you do mass made simple, and I stand by mass made simple, the 6-week program where you do all those experiments with yourself with protein and creatine, I think you could really build mass on that. The question is it going to help your bike racing? At your weight, 150, and in your age, I would recommend you use the 135-pound weights for the program. So I'm expecting you at the end of the 6 weeks to do to back squat 135 for 50 reps. Now, is that going to help your bicycling? Yeah, I'd hope so. Because your quads are going to learn your quads, your butt, and the whole system is going to learn. They're going to get hit by that volume somehow, ideally in a positive way. If you're a hard gainer and and bike racing is your thing, I just think you're going to run out of time in the off season. But armor build for 8 weeks, do the ABF, the basic program. Mass made simple for 6. We're looking at 14 weeks. which is, we're looking at months now, and then slide back to easy strength for your cycling season, that makes sense. And that's, this is just, we're looking at 3.5 month commitment to the weight room. If you have the time to do it, I think it's a heck of a good idea. And at the end of it, if it is just filled with mistakes and errors, you'll at least come away with some increases in your work capacity, some increases in certainly some mass. I mean, if you don't gain mass on Mass Made Simple, I don't know what you're doing wrong. But how it applies to your bike racing in that next year, it might hurt you, but the lessons you learn from that off season might propel you to even a better season the next year. And I'm always thinking that way. I'm always thinking 2 seasons down the line. It's okay to make, I was going to say mistakes. It's okay to try new things as an athlete if you learn things. It's not okay to experiment if it just goes into, that was a mistake. I think there's value here. And Mark, I'd like to see you try exactly what you told me. The ABF followed by Mass Made Simple, followed by Easy Strength. The end. Thank you. Paul asked a question. I started doing Kung Fu, and they suggest we condition our forearms by striking them off things. I know it sounds daft. I am getting on a bit, 51. He thinks he's old, geez. And wondering what is the best way to pack tight muscle on them without exhausting myself for ABC and similar 3 times a week. Paul, I wrote a book on this. Armor Building Formula. You can find it at armorbuildingformula.com or danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. One of the things that kept coming back from my athletes is that doing the armor building formula, the armor building complex, is my running back said, this is what football feels like to them. And so that's the program I wrote. I stand by it. Try it for the 8 weeks. Follow it exactly. Don't get cute. And let me know how it goes. Doing the ABC 3 times a week is really hard. You can do it for a while, a couple of weeks, but it's hard long term. And that's why you want to go to the armor building formula to get the results you want, okay? As for striking things with your hands, when I was young, a lot of people used to beat up trees. You're supposed to strike a tree so many times until it kills. I don't know if that's still done. Another thing we were taught is that you practice fighting in the surf, on the beach when the surf is hitting you, and you practice your techniques in the surf. So there's nothing new, Paul, about what you're learning here. It's part of the martial arts tradition. I would say the ABF and get those 8 weeks and see if it helps. Thanks so much. We have a question from Gibradzi. I'm a 22-year-old man who developed Diastasis Recti without hernia as a result of poor bracing technique during compound lifting. That's interesting. I hurt mine at a yoga class when the teacher, I was in the camel pose, came up and pushed my shoulders back and my body wasn't ready for it. All those years of weightlifting, all those years of collisions and collision sports, no problem. Little yoga instructor pushes my chest, pushes my shoulders back, brings my hips up. How can I continue weightlifting, which is my passion, without further injuring myself? Is this even possible for me? Yes, but I would really strongly recommend you be sure you see a medical doctor and assess how bad it is. I'm concerned that you heard it in traditional training because if you heard it doing traditional training, have you fixed the stuff leading up to it? A simple answer, would be to use a weightlifting belt. We also have in the house here, we have those little foam things. They're supposed to be good for burning off belly fat. I don't think so. But you put them around your waist, but the nice thing about those little neoprene rubber bands that you put around your waist is it reminds you to stay braced, okay? And then put a belt on maybe over that. But I would like to first get some medical advice on this, and ask them what you need to do. It seems like you may have already, because you don't brace well enough. But then, so medical advice. Secondly, learn how to brace. And one of the things I like about the kettlebell community is there's this concept called the column. So this is Mr. Universe position. This is the gymnastics position, that they have a name for it, forgot it. And in the middle there is the column position you kind of want to be in for the kettlebell world. Hollow core, the hollow position. Mr. Universe position, hollow position, and that compromised middle position that you'd use in kettlebells. I have discovered that for me, when I do even bodybuilding movements now, I'm starting to slide away from the Mr. Universe, big chest, lats all the way out, to a little bit more relaxed, because it just seems to work better for me and my needs. Check into that column position. You're packed and stacked. Your head is on top of, the leg bones connected to the shin bone, all that. That you're stacked and then packed as you start to lift. If you're going to hurt yourself more, if you even think about it, make sure you get medical intervention. Get that cleared out. Then practice these positions. Practice these with lighter loads, higher reps. Make sure under fatigue the positions are staying, and then see where you go from there. It really feels like that's a medical question to me. I hope that helped. So Mark asks a fun question. I am currently getting a lot of work in on your armor building formula. Still, I find my body reacts especially well to some of the exercises in the perfect workout, especially the goblet squat drill and the hip thrust magic drill. If you were to extend the workout to 45 minutes, what additional work would be added? I already ensure separate from my workout, I get considerable amount of walking, rucking done, but is there a sensible way of adding more volume to the press and squats when you add in some of the ab wheel work, different exercise, etc.? Or potentially, would you recommend doing less volume of the ABC and then adding the true drills? Well, first, Mark, I think as I'm speaking, the Armor Building Formula supplement has gone out, which will be, of course, available to anybody who bought the thing. And I do recommend at the end of the ABF that you do the perfect workout for 2 weeks. I like your idea here, Mark, about doing that, continue to do that. Now, you gave me two options to think about. The first is expanding the perfect workout. And I don't know how much more you need to do on the presses and hangs. That's 3 sets of half kneeling presses and 30-second hangs. You could easily slide up to 5 sets. I will say this though, in the perfect workout, I only do 1 round of the magic hip thrust drill and only 1 round of the goblet squat drill. And the good reason for that is I get tired when I do them. The easiest way to make that workout last longer is go to 2 to 4 sets of, we'll just call it the magic drill and the overhead squat drill. Let's just say. And what I would recommend you do is do the magic drill, overhead squat drill. Then round 2, magic drill, overhead squat drill, and do 2 to 4 rounds of that. So 4 rounds of the magic drill and overhead squat drill, that is a lot of lower body work, and it's exhausting. I find it exhausting. So that would be option number 1. Now, you could also include those in the armor building formula, I guess. I would say on the high rep press day, you could add the hip thrust and goblet squat drill. But do me a favor, don't go multiple sets the first time. Do high rep, so maybe the first week, do 1 set on the high rep press day, an additional set of the magic drill and the overhead squat drill. The second week, try 2. The third week, try 1 again. And then the fourth week, make a decision. And if 2 works, stick with it. Maybe on that fourth week, try a third. But I think what you're going to find out is that generally, if you're mixing the armor building formula with those 2 extra exercises, that once you get to about 2, that's going to be enough because of all the volume you get on the ABC workouts. Thank you, and I hope that helps. I like your idea. I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but it's a great idea. Tim asks a question that more people should think about, I think. I have just completed a strongman competition as a 42-year-old, hit some personal records, and had a lot of fun. I'm an experienced competitor and even competed at natural worlds in the past. It's sad we have to say that sentence, natural, and in so many of our sports now. No matter how hard or easy the competition is, I'm always ravenous for a few days after. As an experienced athlete in many disciplines, I would love your take on why. It's hardly caloric deficit alone, as it's really only 5 minutes of intense exercise. Is it hormonal, damaged tissues looking for nutrients, or some other cause? And the question comes down to, how do you recover after peaking for an event? Or how do you recover after an event? I think, Tim, and anybody who's ever done an event like Strongman or Highland Games or a Weight Pentathlon in track and field, where you have multiple high-intensity events back to back to back. There used to be a competition in Marin County, California, where they did the Olympic lifts, including the clean and press. They added it. The power lifts, so up to 6 events, strict curl, and 3 other events. And so it was the weightlifting decathlon day. And I always wanted to compete in it, but it never worked because it was done during track season. I couldn't get that weekend off. And of course, I'm pretty sure my track and field coaches wouldn't want me to do it anyway. But I remember Howard doing it one time and just being kind of, like you said, kind of wrecked the week after. And he showed up to work out, Howard Will of blessed memory. He showed up to work out, but you could just see the blah. And he said the same thing. The other thing he noted was his alcohol consumption would jump up after. When you ask your body to do kind of multiple things, which Strongman, Highland Game, Weight Pentathlon, the deadlift decathlon they used to host in Nebraska, when you're asking your body to do all these different things, the response is, I think, now hormonal or nervous system, either one, hard to pin down because you just never know. I think after that, your body's like, I don't know what happened, but we have got to ramp up our resources for that. So after a strongman or something like that, the week after, your body is in a state of shock. And shock isn't it? I was about to say I overstated with the word shock, but there is a kind of shock. Somebody asked me a week ago, how long does it take to recover from a heavy deadlift? And I said, well, in my case, it was weeks. It might have been months. A heavy max deadlift can really frazzle you. I've told the story about how my dentist recommended that I wear a mouth guard when I do those heavy lifts because I grind my teeth so hard. I don't have those little big nubs in my molars. I don't know. I'm just okay. But you're going on a heavy deadlift. You get that weird shake and you're grinding your teeth and all these muscles are flaring out and your cheeks hurt the next day because you squeeze so hard, your eyes hurt. I've been to competitions and training sessions where guys will blow a blood vessel out of their eye. It's gross stuff. It doesn't spurt. It just becomes this big red dot. I've had it once in my whole career. Olympic lifters don't tend to get it as much. So when you're doing something that makes your blood vessels blow up in your eyes, that makes your teeth grind down, that makes your neck hurt for days, you can't be shocked when your body responds with, I'm very tired and I want more food. How do you deal with that? Well, as best you can. And by the way, if you ever talk to a bodybuilder after a bodybuilding competition, one of the things you'll find out is that their control over things like sugar and carbs is almost freakish, as their body is trying to figure out, let's fix whatever problems we can. So I would do your best to, and it's going to be something your grandma would tell you, but try to make good choices on your ravenous appetite the week after, the month after, however it is. Just try to make good choices. Going into an event like that, one of the things I would ask you, I mean, do you have a meditation practice? Do you nap? How is your sleep quality? What are the first things you see when you open the fridge? You know, all those kind of very basic, simple grandmother questions, really. What's your sleep like? You know, how can I force you to, you know, go protein and veggies first? By the way, fruit is marvelous after a competition. I mean, if you're going to sugar out, you know, stuff yourself full of apples, you know, or berries in my case, you know, whatever it is. These are just some ideas, and I hate to be so random because everything I just said is so simple and so logical, but it's all true. The other thing is, if you have an opportunity to do things like hot tub or sauna or steam, and like in my case, my sauna's right there, I'll often turn on podcasts or books on tape, just something that allows me to, you know, bring that engine down a little bit, okay? If you can do anything along those lines, I think great. Now, I would not recommend doing ice baths because that's just going to shoot that nervous system back up. But if the best you have is a hot bath, get yourself a hot bath, find yourself a good book. Here's a good book, and this will be wonderful to read. Dan John's Kettlebell Workout Companion. Sorry, it was right there staring at me. Yeah, those are available on Amazon. Those are just some ideas for you. And I like, you ask if it's hormonal. I'm guarantee it's everything. It's your hormonal system. It's your nervous system. It is your muscles. It is your, I mean, I got to tell you, from what I've seen of strongman, it's your bones and tendons and ligaments too. So everything needs a little bit of love, and your body shows it to you by being just freakishly hungry. You know, when we used to compete, a group of us in the Highland Games, we had this little secret that we would go 0 carbs up to the day of the event, maybe 5 days. Got it from Lyle McDonald. And after the event, we would carb up. And that, of course, means because they always provide beer. And so we'd be eating beer and pizza. And just to feel my body and my emotions change with that carb hit after competing, after, you know, going 0 carb for a few days, and just to feel my body and my emotions change by the carbs was kind of a fascinating thing. I don't recommend that for everybody, but boy, it's an interesting thing to do. We plan that carb up, and if you don't plan it, don't do what I just said. Thank you for the question, and I hope I helped a little bit, Tim. Thank you. Oh, well, we have a good question. Our final question is from Mike. A few months ago, I wrote in about how the swing has improved the way my low back and hips feel. I have a very athletic brother who does not respect the kettlebell swing. Okay, what exercises does he respect? I mean, they're exercises, okay. He does not see the value in it as a strength builder or as a tool to promote a cardiovascular health, as he is a big proponent of Zone 2 training. Can you talk some sense into this brother of mine? No, I can't. No. And this is a lesson I've learned, my friend Mike. You know, I'll go to parties and people will say, you know, I'm 67. You know, I got that wasp thin waistline, those barnyard wide shoulders. I'm just messing. And people ask what I do, and I'll say, well, you know, at least one day a week I fast. I don't even get the word fast out. Guess what I get in response? I could never do that. I I eat vegetables every meal. Oh, how do you do that? It's impossible. I walk at least half an hour every day, usually 45 minutes or more. No way. How do you find the time to walk? I'll tell you how you find the time to walk. Stop watching stupid television. But, what do I know? Trying to convince people of anything, I just got to retire from it, Mike. I just have to retire from it. Listen, I'm a big believer in the kettlebell swing. Years ago, I called it the fat burning athlete builder. And you'll find that phrase in a lot of Pavel's books. You'll find it in a lot of other sources, because I like the swing. Obviously, when Mike Brown and I, if you're not related, you have the same name. Mike Warren Brown and I, we first started doing that 10,000 swing challenge. When we're trying to figure out all these different variations and ways to do it better, I got to tell you, there were some marvelous things going in my body with the kettlebell swing. When I first started doing the kettlebell swing correctly, I got some good advice from people, some good kettlebell instructors. It was Steve Maxwell and Steve Cotter, Brett Jones. I wasn't part of their community yet, but it was really helpful because they gave me some good advice. And I discovered doing the kettlebell swing as well as the kettlebell halo. There was no, I was doing the goblet squat, but none of the kettlebell organizations were yet, because I hadn't yet showed it to them. And, I started doing some of these exercises, and it really helped my javelin throw. In fact, there's a famous article over at Dragon Door called the What the Heck Effect. Well, doing kettlebell swings and halos helped my javelin go farther. Basically, I improved my javelin throw 70 feet. Now, I was a terrible javelin thrower, so don't read too much into it, but still, to go from a 90-foot javelin thrower to 177, I think it was, that's a huge improvement. And the only difference was good coaching from Bill Witt and the kettlebell swing and the kettlebell halo and one or two other exercises I would do. Is the kettlebell swing better than 10,000 steps a day? I don't know. Is a kettlebell swing better than deadlifts followed by a 2-hour walk? Well, I don't know. But if you have a kettlebell and you don't have a situation where you can go on this 2-hour walk, the swing's a pretty good option. I think the kettlebell swing is the cleanest hip hinge movement I've ever done. Now, obviously, as I say that, I'm already thinking about when I'm at certs. I have regressions and progressions. I have a ton of regressions down because not a lot of people can just walk in and do a kettlebell swing because of the ballistic nature of it. So I came out with the Bulgarian goat bag swing, and we do hip thrusts, and we do glute bridges, and we do all these regressions to help someone figure out that position. But to me, Mike, it's like when people say that there's no value in the hip thrust. Well, why? Are you just trying to win an internet argument? When people say there's no value in overhead squats, what planet are you from? Why are you trying? Every exercise has value, done correctly, done appropriately, in a reasonable, doable, repeatable fashion. My knock on line always is that, if 10,000 kettlebell swings are good, then 100,000 would be better. If, someone on Jujimufu's site, somebody said about me that here's a guy who can't even do 50 burpees. Folks, if for $1 million, I'll do 50 burpees for you. Heck, for $10,000, I'll do 50 burpees for you. But who cares about burpees, lunges, these jump rope standards? They're all fine. And if that's what you do and that's what you have, that's great. But the lunge versus the back squat versus the front squat versus the overhead squat, tools. You got to have them all in your toolkit. None is better than the other. It's how you use them. It's why you use them. And it's your ability to coach it and do it correctly and do it correctly repeatedly. Mike, if you need help, I don't know if you guys still have sibling rivalries and get into, if you guys get into a fight over this, please film it. I haven't seen a good Donnybrook in a long time, a brouhaha, if you will. And I know how brothers are. I'm the youngest of 6 siblings, 5 boys and a girl, and listen, if I liked a show, my brother Phil, by law, had to hate it. And if my brother Phil hated it, by law, Gary had to like it, and you just know where this goes. So I'm doing my best to help you and your brother. I think the swing is a great exercise, and I can't convince anybody anything, and I never have been. I just do my best to answer questions. And if you have questions, I want you to send them to the podcast here at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. This is a question and answer podcast, so your questions are what make this thing go. And as always, until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.